This is part 1 of our PL-500 series. To get notified about our future parts, please make sure to subscribe our channel and press the bell icon. To the questions. Question 1. You need to identify the actions that Pipeline Manager 1 can perform. Which 3 actions can Pipeline Manager 1 perform? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are B, C, and F. That is, modify or delete a flow, add or remove other owners, view the run history. View the run history, manage the properties of the flow, edit the definition of the flow, add or remove other owners, and delete the flow. Question 2. You need to configure the desktop action for the maintenance scheduler cloud flow. Which 2 actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are B and D, that is, navigate to desktop flow action settings in the cloud flow and select the timeout property and update the duration to PT20M. B and D seems correct since the desktop flow is started from a cloud flow and I cannot find a timeout setting from within desktop either. Question 3. You have an automation solution that uses a desktop flow. The flow reads data from a file that is stored on a user's machine and writes data to an application. You import the solution to an environment that is connected to another user's machine. The user reports that the flow fails. An alert indicates that the path to a file does not exist. You confirm that the file is present on the user's desktop. You need to resolve this issue. What should you do? The correct option is D. Change the location of the file to a specific path that is not dependent on the signed in user. D is correct. However, a better solution is to use get special folder to locate the individual path to the file without using a hard-coded location. Question 4. You are developing a desktop flow. You need to include an if statement that contains AND logic within the flow. Which expression should you use for the if statement? The correct option is C. If you copy the if condition from Power Automate desktop and paste it into a notepad, you can see the answer. Question 5. You create a custom connector that retrieves data from an API. The host URL of the API requires a connection with a dynamic subdirectory path. You need to ensure the custom connector's requests are completed successfully. Which 2 features should you use? Each correct answer presents a part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are B and C, that is, define a base URL and define a policy. About the options, B. Define a base URL. Defining a base URL allows you to set a common part of the URL that is shared across all requests. This is useful for handling the dynamic subdirectory path as part of the base URL. About option C, Define a policy. Policies in a custom connector allow you to define rules or behaviors for requests. You can use policies to handle dynamic elements such as headers or parameters that may change based on the dynamic subdirectory path. Question 6. You need to resolve the fulfillment status flow issue. Which three actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A, B, and E. That is, ensure that the flow instance does not remain in the queue for more than 3 hours. Ensure that all users are signed out from the target machine. And trigger the flow by using an on-premises data gateway. About the options, A, 3 hours will time out the flow. About B, if it is left unattended, then it will sign out. About E, it is deprecated but still works. Question 7. You need to configure the flow for processing invoices that arrive in the AP mailbox. Which three elements should you use? Each correct answer presents a part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A, B, and E. That is AI model, document type, and pages. When you add a predict action to Cloudflow, you can configure the model, document type, document, and pages. Location is not a property. Question 8. You need to identify the cause for the SMS app data entry issue. What is the root cause? The correct option is E. The Power Automate Management connector is assigned to the business category. A suspended state can mean it hasn't been used for more than 28 days or can have something to do with DLP policies on a connector. Question 9. You have a desktop flow that interacts with a desktop based application. You plan to enter data into each field by using the send keys action. You test the flow. The send keys action runs successfully, but the input fields are empty. You need to add a step before the send keys action to resolve this issue. Which two steps can you use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are A and C, that is, use the wait for window action and use the focus window action. It is A to check the window is opened and C to send the keys to the correct window. About the options, A, it is to wait for the window element to be verified. About C, it is to focus the application for keystrokes to be sent. Question 10. You need to package the automations. What should you do? The correct option is D. Add required components to each item within the solution. Question 11. Hotspot. You need to configure the solution for the ERP data operations flow. Which configuration values should you use? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, configuration setting, type of trigger to use. The correct option is when a new email arrives. To the next configuration, type of variables to use in the desktop flow to access credentials. The correct option is input. Question 12. You need to configure the Rail status updater Cloudflow. What should you do? The correct option is D. Create an environment variable. Update each desktop flow action to read the variable. Question 13. Drag drop. You are developing desktop flows for a company. You need to use Recorder to record steps that you are performing in target applications. Which recording modes will Recorder use? To answer, drag the appropriate recording modes to the correct target applications. Each recording mode may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The recording modes available to us are standard, image based, and web. To the answer area, target application, web browser. The correct option is standard. To the next statement, iframe within a web browser. The correct option is image based. To the next statement, Java applet. The correct option is image based. To the last statement, Windows application. The correct option is standard. There are only image based or default recorder options to choose from. Question 14. A company uses Power Automate desktop flows. You need to share a desktop flow to allow other users to run the flow. Which two permission levels should you use? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Select all answers that apply. The correct options are A and C, that is user and co-owner. Co-owner and user are permissions for desktop flows and both allow a user to run the flow. A co-owner can also edit the flow. Owner and run-only user are permissions for cloud flows. Question 15. Hotspot. You are designing automation processes for a company. You need to select the appropriate action for each automation scenario. Which actions should you perform? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Automate keyboard input and mouse movements for a product ordering website that does not have an API. The correct option is create a desktop flow. To the next requirement, automate a process for a desktop application that provides an API with authenticated access. The correct option is create a custom connector. To the next statement, automate keyboard input and mouse movements for a desktop application. The correct option is create a desktop flow. Question 16. Drag drop. A company plans to implement AI models to perform business processes. You need to determine whether to use pre-built or custom AI models. Which type of model should you use for each scenario? To answer, drag the appropriate model types to the correct scenarios. Each model may be used once, more than once, or not at all. You may need to drag the split bar between panes or scroll to view content. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The model types provided to us are pre-built and custom. To the answer area, scenario, extract information from a receipt. The correct option is pre-built. To the next statement, detect spam mails. The correct option is custom. To the next statement, identify the language used in a text document. The correct option is pre-built. To the next statement, extract information from text documents. The correct option is custom. Question 17, hotspot. You need to design automation solutions for a company. What should you implement? To answer, select the appropriate configuration in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, scenario. Sign into a web application that does not have an API and download a CSV file. The correct option is desktop flow. To the next statement, access a CSV file from a local drive. The correct option is file system connector. To the last statement, send an email that includes a CSV file attachment. The correct option is Outlook connector. Question 18. You have an automation solution that uses a desktop flow. The flow reads data from a file that is stored on a user A's machine and writes the data to an application. You import the solution to an environment that is connected to user B's machine. You confirm that the file is present on the user B's desktop. You need to resolve the issue. What should you do? The correct option is D. Change access rights for the file to allow read operations for the pad process. Question 19. You have an automation solution that uses a desktop flow. The flow reads data from a file that is stored on user A's machine and writes data to an application. You import the solution to an environment that is connected to user B's machine. User B reports that the flow fails. An alert indicates that the path to the file does not exist. You confirm that the file is present on user B's desktop. You need to resolve the issue. What should user B do? The correct option is C. Use the getWindows environment variable action to read the username environment variable and use the value in the path to the user's desktop. Question 20. Hotspot. You are developing automation for an application. You plan to use the application on legacy desktop applications and browser applications. You need to select the appropriate scripting language based on the requirements. Which scripting language action should you use? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Automate SAP. The correct option is run VB script. To the next statement, automate website. The correct option is run JavaScript function on web page. To the next statement, create new scheduled task on Windows. The correct option is run PowerShell script. To the last statement, silently run console application. The correct option is run DOS command. Question 21. You are creating a custom connector to support invoice automation. You connect a Power Automate flow to the custom connector and successfully authenticate. When you test the flow, you observe that several actions are missing from the custom connector. You need to update the custom connector settings. What should you do? The correct option is B. Set the action visibility option to none. Question 22. Hotspot. You need to determine the causes for the reported issues. What are the causes? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, issue, new environment. The correct option is admin mode is turned off. To the next statement, flow A. The correct option is the user is in the wrong environment. To the next statement, dataverse error. The correct option is Microsoft Dataverse was not shared with the user from the development environment. Question 23. You need to implement security to resolve the invoice data issue. Which three actions should you perform? Each correct answer present part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. The correct options are B, D, and E. That is, select the finance role, select custom entities, and navigate to the table. In Microsoft Power Platform Admin Center, navigate to the Security Roles section. Clear the create and delete permissions, set the read permission and write permission values to business unit. Question 24. Hotspot. You need to configure the solution. What should you use? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, requirement. Automate the SMS app data entry process. The correct option is desktop flow. To the next statement, handle invoices sent to the accounts payable mailbox. The correct option is when a new email arrives in a shared mailbox. To the next statement, implement the order process. The correct option is business process flows. The first one should be desktop flows. Mobile task flows are just for phones and tablets and are a type of cloud flow. The case study specifies the app is on each user's workstation and there is no API. So a cloud flow would have no way to directly connect to it. Question 25. Hotspot. You develop automation solutions for a company. You need to implement actions to meet the company's requirements. What should you do? To answer, select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, scenario. You have a desktop flow that is currently in queue. Requirement. You must ensure that the flow is the next flow to run. The correct option is move to the top. To the next statement, scenario. You have a business critical desktop flow that runs on a virtual machine. The virtual machine also handles multiple AD-HOC desktop flows. Requirement. You must ensure that the business critical flow runs when it is needed. The correct option is change the priority. Question 26. Hotspot. You are developing automation solutions for a company. You need to select the appropriate error handling action for the following scenarios. Which actions should you use? To answer, Select the appropriate options in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, scenario. A desktop flow with multiple action tries to launch Microsoft Excel with a blank workbook. The process fails. The correct option is handle the error within the action only. To the next statement, a desktop flow with multiple action tries to sign in to a website by using the Chrome browser. The process occasionally fails. The correct option is handle the error within the on block error only. To the next statement, a cloud flow must update a Boolean variable when a specific action fails. The correct option is configure run after. Question 27, hotspot. You create a solution that includes a Power Automate cloud flow and desktop flow. You observe the following issues with the solution. A single Power Automate cloud flow action has a long runtime. The Power Automate desktop flow encounters an error. You need to debug the solution. Which debug features should you use? To answer, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. To the answer area, issue. Long runtime for a single cloud flow action. The correct option is timeout. To the last statement, most recent error in the desktop flow. The correct option is get last error. Question 28. You are developing a cloud flow that will fetch data from an external API without subscribing. You need to extract one of the values returned from the API. Which 3 actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Select all answers that apply. The correct options are A, C, and E. That is, use an HTTP connector to call the external API, use the parse JSON action to read the response body, and select the key from parse JSON in dynamic content. These 3 actions are correct. The other actions will not provide the correct result. The HTTP webhook connector is used to call an external API using the subscribe/unsubscribe method. It is clearly mentioned that you need to call API without subscribing. Question 29. A company uses Power Automate desktop flows. You need to call subflows from the main flow in a desktop flow. Which action should you use to run a subflow? Select only one answer. The correct option is E, on block error. A rule can be added to the on block error configuration to run a subflow. The go to action is used to transfer execution within a flow to a label with the same flow. Go to and labels cannot transfer execution to a subflow. Regions are used to group action steps within a flow. Regions cannot be used across flows. The get last error action stores the latest error in a variable. Question 30. You need to configure the invoke web service action field in a desktop flow to allow basic authentication for an API request. Which field should you configure? The correct option is D, HTTP authentication. The HTTP authentication field can be configured in the invoke web service section to ensure that a username and password can be included for API authentication. The other fields cannot be used for basic authentication for the API request. The request body field is used to include request body that will be sent to the web service. The content type field is used to include content type of the request that will be sent to the web service. The custom headers field is used to include custom headers that will be sent to the web service.